Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is a little different because we're going to be talking not so much about code by itself, but code and how it works with the engineering design process. And before I begin, I kind of want to give a little shout out to Patricia Morgan over at Stevenson Middle School for inspiring this video, because she's working with her students to teach the engineering design process for her students. And I love it. She's such an awesome teacher. Like, if you ever had her as a teacher at Stevenson Middle School, then you really lucked out. Like, you really got kind of the best of the best. And I'm not trying to dog other teachers. I'm not trying to start fights, but I really respect her. And if it wasn't for her and for teachers like her, then teachers like me wouldn't have the same kind of quality students that I have now. And so for every STEM teacher out there, Trish and otherwise, you guys are awesome. And this video is for you, and I hope it helps. So why don't we get started? If we think about what the engineering design process is, it's really just a step-by-step method to solving problems. So in step one of the engineering design process, let's talk about identifying the needs. And so the needs that I've identified is that people have insecure passwords. And if we move directly from one to step two, which is researching the problem, this is kind of a big problem. I mean, you have friends that might have, had their accounts broken into, or because they have weak passwords, or you maybe have a parent or a friend. I'm going to be honest here. The weakness in a system is usually not the computer, it's the person. According to Avast, for instance, like 83% of all Americans that they've surveyed have these weak passwords, and it's usually like a family name or a birth date or an anniversary date, boyfriend, girlfriend's name, pet's name, some of the hobbies that they like. And using social engineering, it's really easy to guess someone's password if you have enough time. So I wanted to write some code that took that out. And I think that moves us to the third step, which is imagining a process. And under developing these possible solutions, we could just use an external password manager, but I don't want to do that. I think it's easier if you wrote your own password manager, because if you used another password manager, odds are they could kind of just save it, right? I mean, they just say like, we're not going to save it, or it's secure, but is it really? Would it be as secure as something you wrote yourself that would never remember what the password is anyway? So this leads me to the fourth point, plan. So this is where the coding starts. So why don't we dive into that together and write this code out to build a password generator? Let's get started. So as we get started to write our password generator and we're building this design phase, the first thing we need to do is write an algorithm, because I don't want to start writing code right away. I think we should begin with an algorithm. I think the first part of our algorithm should say, import random module. And if you don't know how to import a module, go back and watch a video on functions and random, or pip. I think I have that video on there too. So we import a random module, and then we need and beside importing the random module, we need like a list of characters. So a list of characters to draw from that will create the password. And then after we have a list of characters to draw from, we need a place to store them. We need to dump them somewhere. So create an empty list to hold characters. All right. And then maybe we should create a function. Let's make this all a function. Let's wrap this up nice and tidy. So create function that generates random password based on the length of what the user says. So the reason we say that is to say, well, if the user says, I need a password that's 8 characters long, or I need a password that's 10 characters long, we can do that. We can create this right here in code. And we should have a function that does that. So if we think about our algorithm thus far, it's pretty simple. We're just going to import a random module. We're going to have a list of characters that we're going to write. And if you need that list of characters, it's in the comment, a description of this video. So you can actually just copy and paste out that entire list of characters if you need it, instead of writing every single one. I'll just do that for you. It'll be a lot easier. Okay. So why don't we go back to the code, and then let's finish writing this up, and then we can talk a little bit more about this particular code and why it works out and how we can apply engineering design process to even make it better. So why don't we begin by doing this first? We're going to import the random module. So we'll say import random as rand. That's pretty good. List of characters to draw from. I'm just going to paste that. And you know what I'll do? I'm going to word wrap this so you can see everything. And by the way, I think I mentioned earlier that you can find all of this in the description of this video. So why don't I word wrap this, and you can we'll go edit, and then we'll go to view, editor layout, and then let's word wrap. Oh, here we go, toggle word wrap. All right. So this is one line, okay? So these are the list of characters. We have A, B, C, D, E, F, G. We have all these characters. And then we have also numbers and characters like exclamation point, the hashtag, the $sign, the @ symbol. And if you wanted uppercase letters too, you can add them in. You can add as many things as you want, as long as you probably don't have duplicates. You can have duplicates, it's just not a good problem. And then now we need to create an empty list to hold our characters. So I'll say password. This is where we're going to hold everything, and we'll just have an empty list. And now let's go ahead and create this function. So we'll say create pass, and then we don't have any parameters yet. And then we'll say, well, we need to figure out how long we're going to run this. How many characters are we going to generate? So that is to say, we actually need to pass in some variables, and let's just say choice, or we'll say X. We'll call it X. And outside of our function, we need to ask the user for a choice, and then we'll say as in input integer, because they need to select a number of how long would your password like to be. Okay, so they're going to enter a number of how long their password wants to be, and then we're going to pass that choice into the create pass. So create pass, and we'll do choice. And like I said, if this is confusing to you, go ahead and watch my video on Python functions, and this will be very clear. This will be very easy for you to do. All right. So now we need to iterate over how many times they said they want their password to be run. So let's make an algorithm comment. We'll say run a for loop and iterate over their choices, over their choice. So if they said for I in range 0, X, so whatever they said, if they said 10, it's 0 to 10. If it said 20, 0 to 20. If they said 0 to 100, they can do 0 to 100. All right, for I in range 0 to that. And now we're going to generate our password. So why don't we write our comment in here, and we'll say generate a random number and save it as y. All right, y equals rand.randint. We need a random integer. And between what? Between 0 and the length of my characters. But this is a problem, because length returns a number between 1 and to the end of the number. Meaning if there's 100 things in there, it's going to return 1 to 100. But for those of you that remember how we count in code, we always start counting at 0. So if this will try to pull a number outside of the length of characters, it'll be broken. So we must say length of characters, right, minus 1. Because then we have now 0. We can count 0. So if it pulls 1, then it'd be actually 0, and 0 is letter A, right? 0 is A, 1 is B, 2 is C, 3 is D, if you look at the character list. Okay? So we have this. Now we need a way to take that and pull it from the list of characters. And we're going to append this empty list. So our algorithm will say, so after we generate a random number, save it as y, pull a character from the chars list and append it to the password list. because the password list is empty. So then we say password.append, because we're adding something to a list. What are we appending? Chars. Why? It's going to pull a random character from the characters list and append it to the password list. Now we need a way to say, look, stop, man. You have done all you can based on however long I said the character list is, right? So we need a way to tell it to stop. Okay, so stop when it reaches the length of the choice. And we'll say if the length of password is equal to whatever the user said. If that's true, then we'll stop. And how do we stop it? Well, let's print out their password. So we'll say print out their password. So because if we print out a list of characters, it's just going to show whatever. If we print the password, it's just going to show the random characters separated by commas, and that's not what we want. We want one cohesive long string. So then we say print, and we're going to join it, right? So we have this. It's going to be joined by nothing. Dot join. What are we joining? We're joining the password. Save this, and let's run it. How long would I like my password to be? I'd like it to be 10 characters long. There we go. There's your password. You can copy and paste this if you wanted to. Let's run it again. I'd like my password to be 300 characters long. God, that's a big number. Please don't do that. But there it is. You have a password that's 300 characters long. You're totally not going to remember that. But these are passwords that we can generate. So in the engineering design process, we just knocked out the creation part and then we tested it. So what's left in the engineering design process? Well, improvement. And if you think about what we've created, we could definitely improve this. I mean, we're missing capital letters. Maybe there's a way that we can only generate characters that are required. For example, let's pretend that you have a system that says, I don't want exclamation points, or I don't want, hashtag marks. We need to give those users some options, right? Maybe a way to say, you've already used this password, you can't use it again. I mean, that's highly unlikely, but it could happen. Then maybe give the user a way to print it out. I would argue that's a little insecure too. Don't do that. Or save it. Yeah, let's not do that either. But there has to be a way for a user to remember it. Or maybe like a mnemonic, something they can remember. So as the engineer and as a designer, this is really now back in your court. You need to now decide, how would I make this better? I've started you on this simple process, and I hope that you can make it better. I know you can. So that's the engineering design process in a nutshell. There's probably a lot more, but this is a Code Quick channel, which means I get through it really quick. If you have any questions, just go ahead and leave comments below. Fast forward, rewind. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, I would love if you did. Really support me. Okay? I'll take care and I'll see you later. Bye.